Hello, everybody. Welcome on the Innovation and Strategy blog. I'm Guillaume Vidon de Benveniste, your host. And today I'm joined with Harrie. Hey,
Hello,
Harrie.
Guillaume. Hello, Guillaume. How are you?
I'm great. And yourself?
Great, great, great. Looking forward to the interview.
Okay, so Harrie, could you introduce yourself?
Okay, I am Harrie. A long time ago, I was Irish. I've been living most of my adult life in France. And I have been, for most of my adult life, a management consultant, helping people transform their businesses. More recently, I've been dragged by my customers into the space of helping them transform digitally, and have discovered how much fun it can be, but also how everybody talks about digital transformation, but they don't talk about the same things. It's just one lovely sentence that means thousands of things differently, different people.
So let's take it at that. You talked about digital transformation, and another buzzword is digital innovation.
Yeah.
So how would you distinguish one from the other?
Well, for me, digital innovation is when we use digital tools to basically innovate, which typically means in businesses we are looking for new business models, and we want to find ways with digital to open up to do new things that we were not doing before. Whereas this digital transformation, I prefer to call it, is when we are just improving how things are done inside the business using digital tools. Those are I guess, the two. I mean, we all know when we talk about digital, everybody wants to talk about Uber and being like Uber, which is a digital innovation because they created a new market for themselves out of nothing using digital tools. Whereas, let's say, people say digital transformation is, we're going to go into the cloud. Yeah, well, sorry, guys, just going to the cloud is transformation. It's not innovation. You're just doing things better, more effectively, differently, internally.
So in a sense, digital transformation has to do with adding new technologies into the current operating model and the production chain.
Yeah.
And digital innovation is creating something new out of nothing, like
Absolutely.
you mentioned Uber.
Yeah, like Uber.
So okay, now let me. Some people say, Harrie, that Europe is a place of digital transformation, and Silicon Valley is a place of digital innovation. Do you share that point of view?
Well, when we started talking about this and talking about the differences, I did my research, and I found it a case where France, I think, has innovated with digital because, for example, in the car rental space, there's a company based out of France called Virtuo, who have basically adapted car rental. So when we rent a car, we don't have to go to the counter and talk to this person who doesn't want to be there, and we have to negotiate to get the right keys to the right car, right? So by getting rid of that person from the whole equation, Virtuo have made it easier and making renting cars more fun. And I think I think we're close to innovation, and that's a French case. But all the big examples, Uber and Airbnb, are Netflix, are typically Silicon Valley, yeah, unfortunately, for Europe. But we'll find more, I hope, in the future here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would you characterize digital innovation? I'm guessing that you can look at the topic on a sector by sector basis. For example, you could say this industry, there's been a lot of digital innovation because there have been a number of disruptive startups.
Yeah.
And perhaps there's another industry that is undergoing digital transformation, but we have not seen as of yet some disruptive startup that is challenging incumbents. Do you agree with that? Are there some industries that have been disruptive in a greater degree than others?
Obviously, I mean, because if we look at, take an example, banking, right? There are a lot of people trying to innovate in banking, but it's taking a long time. I mean, in Europe, we have different startups. I'm just looking at my wallet to find the name. There's Revolut, which is a British startup. Sorry, forgot it. Revolut are an innovation. They are working differently than the standard banks, the old banks. But people in that sort of space, the consumer takes a lot more time to accept the change. So whereas it's interesting to see in transport, Uber, and in Airbnb, leisure, people are willing to change very fast. When it gets to their money, they're more concerned, so they take more time. So I think.
So just for those of us who are not aware of what Revolut is, could you tell us what it is?
Well, Revolut is a digital bank. Basically, you go online, you sign up, they send you, immediately you get a card, which is a virtual card, then we'll send you a physical card, and everything happens through the app. So it's connected up to Google Pay and Apple Pay, so you can go. It's all this new modern world, but you never speak to anybody. The money you just send money into your account and it gets out of it, and you never have to go and see somebody. And it's great. It's great. It's all fun.
So it's a real bank, basically.
It's a real bank, and what's
I'm guessing they don't charge a number of different fees.
I don't think they don't charge anything. I don't, for most stuff. You can actually move money around from currency to currency immediately in real time, and they charge if you, on the basic account you probably should pay some charges, but if you pay a kind of monthly fee, that goes to zero. So it makes everything much easier. You can have a credit card and you can pay in different kind of currencies, and it will deal with it in an easy way. You don't get charged all these bloody extra fees and anything. So, and I think they're still losing money, unfortunately, but that's all startups, isn't it? Yeah. So.
And that gets us to the financial and the funding part of the conversation. Because, and this is my own personal opinion, but I'd be happy to get your views on the topic too. Digital innovation doesn't generate any cash at the very beginning. It doesn't generate revenue, at least not something that is equivalent to the cost of development. And digital transformation, as we're talking about established companies that have existing revenue flows, they tend to be, I mean, sometimes profitable companies.
Yeah.
So those are two different beasts from a funding point of view. Would you agree with that?
Totally. And you just hit the nail on the head. Why have startups being able to innovate digitally, whereas incumbents can't? Because as we've seen with something like Netflix, the costs, the amount of money they spend, or Uber, the amount of money they spend, you couldn't do that in an established company where they have shareholders who expect to continue to receive returns immediately. So you have, whereas if you set up a startup and it is set up in such a way that the people investing know they have to fund it for a certain time, that's okay. Whereas if you go to an incumbent, somebody already is in the space, their shareholders are expecting a return today. So of course that's one. But it's been the case of most disruptive innovation. Very little disruptive information over the years has come out of incumbents because of that need. I mean, we all know the case of Kodak. Kodak was an incumbent. They didn't go into even though they were the ones who invented digital cameras, they didn't go into the space because they couldn't get the same returns that their shareholders expected, and let a space for new guys to come in and start beside them where their shareholders didn't have the same expectations. And I think we can see that across all the big innovations over the last 20, 30 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think the example of Kodak is interesting because it adds an additional idea. I had just said that startups, it's okay if startups lose money because the idea is that they'll generate much profit, in like 4 years or 10 years. But for established companies, they have to be profitable. They're in fact already profitable as they engage in digital transformation. They need to continue and become even more profitable. And yet with Kodak, there's something else, is that you're basically getting two different business models, pitting two different
Yeah,
business models against each other. So the
absolutely.
established one with traditional photography
Yeah.
and the new sort of digital photography, and the new one may have lower margins, and that does not encourage decision makers to go with
Yeah.
the innovation.
But you can even see that if you go and look at the BlackBerry story.
Mm-hmm.
BlackBerry, which was a startup, failed because they started making good returns. And when they had to then evolve into the next generation, when the smartphones and iPhone turned up, they were not willing, I assume. I mean, I don't have all the details, but I'm just assuming that the shareholders had started making nice, returns, and they didn't want to keep on investing, so
Right.
they didn't follow. And I was thinking the same must have been the case in Nokia on the telephone business
Mm-hmm.
side, where they were making profit and then they couldn't keep on and they lost out to Samsung and to Apple. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah.
So let me ask you another question. As a European, why do you feel like, I mean, I'm sure that you'd agree that Europe is missing out on a lot of digital innovation related growth. Um, do you agree with that? And
Now,
if you do, okay, well, if you don't, why? And if you do agree with that,
well,
what
we
could
all
Europe
know,
do?
yeah. We all know the case of Amazon, right? Amazon is now the biggest company in the world. Has how much worth? 2 trillion or whatever.
Yes. So is
But how long?
Apple.
Yeah, but how long did it take? It took 20 odd years. Okay, it took 20 years, and now we see it, right? But for a long time we didn't. Huh? So maybe let's hope there are companies in Europe working in spaces like um, medical devices, um, the medical, how we operate on people, cut them open, using new technology that is purely digital, using virtual reality stuff, using 3D printing,
Mm-hmm.
using other connected devices. Maybe the whole space is actually happening that we just don't see it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But where the time to really build hasn't yet, we haven't seen it, but it will happen. Um, 3D, if you take an example, 3D printing has not yet got to maturity,
Mm-hmm.
but 3D printing could completely turn certain industries on their heads.
Right. And you feel that 3D printing startups have the necessary funding? Because Amazon raised, I wish I knew, I think it's 1.2 billion, but I'm not sure that's the exact
Okay.
figure.
Yeah.
I think it may be much more than that. But do you think you have the funding capacity in Europe to support these disruptive startups that you see coming out in the 3D space as well as in the medtech space?
I don't know. Honestly, I can't say I know. I I guess the world has become one marketplace in a way over the
Mm-hmm.
last 20, 30 years. So
Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't the you know the people with all this money, why would they only invest in companies that are starting up in the US today? Why would they only do it in Silicon Valley? Silicon Valley has been the space for a certain type of innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Why assume it's the same right place for medical innovation, for 3D printing stuff, for completely new businesses that we haven't yet thought about? You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, I'm astounded. If you look at today, over the last 5 years more, there's been a lot of people have connected themselves up with telephones, watches. They're collecting data about themselves, right?
Yep.
That hasn't yet been monetized. That hasn't yet been turned into business. But why uh, are we sure that the Silicon Valley is the right place to make that into a financial success? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hope it's more spread out. Why?
All
We
right.
don't know, but let's hope. Let's hope that we can turn all this stuff that's happening into new services where people get value from other people helping them in the way giving them value out of their data in a way, turning their data into something that's valuable for their health, for how they train in terms of being sporty, or I believe in years to come we'll end up using digital devices to help us with psychological problems. We'll record all this data about ourselves, and this will be fed into some big AI computer, and that'll say, oh, this guy's got this sort of psychological problem, and he needs to start changing this, otherwise he's going to have a burnout, or he's going to have this. Where's all that going to happen? Why do you think? I don't know. Maybe we need Europeans for that. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
Are you ready to have an AI psychotherapist?
No, my psychotherapist is actually I burned her down.
Because
she's going through burnout. I mean,
she's going through burnout. She she's got so much data she burnt out. But
that's right. Yeah.
I am sure tomorrow there will be machines that we just talk to them. They'll listen to how we talk. They'll realize that we're saying, the subconscious is doing this to us, and they'll teach us stuff, and they'll help us change. So yeah. And I don't know whether that's going to come out of the US, out of Silicon Valley. We need more people.
So we're looking to a multipolar world. Is that correct?
Yes. Let's go for it. Let's do it.
All right, Harrie. I was really happy to talk to you.
Thank you.
This is our first recorded conversation, and we're going to have another one. We'll look more specifically at on the topic of digital transformation in established companies.
Okay, good.
That's actually your real job. And it was great to talk, and I hope to be talking to you soon.
Thank you, Guillaume.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.